This is about who gets space, who gets time, and resource scarcity from here on out. I'm going to be talking a lot about the Mars Trilogy, which is a speculative utopia series written by Stanley Robinson, him, in 1992, 93, and 1996. The story starts with an ecologically fraught Earth that forces human expansion to Mars. The book spans centuries, covering the terraforming and subsequent liberation of the humans on Mars. It's not just about putting an ocean on a planet. The more pressing story is one where humanity becomes Martian. And I want you to know, none of the following is really a spoiler, but here's what he thinks you could get out of that utopian deal. For the most part, Stanley Robinson writes from a socialist democratic perspective. You could reasonably call it propaganda, but I didn't find that part to be distracting. One issue I do take is his valuation of the pioneer attitude. The first book especially is all about getting to Mars for the benefit of being first to a virgin land. And that's problematic, particularly because it evokes the very thing he's advocating humans unlearn. In fairness, Stanley Robinson does present a decolonial perspective and anti-terraforming perspective through a scientist who loves rocks like they were people. There were a lot of essays on rocks and other science stuff and sociology, which I definitely enjoyed, but also forgot a lot of. I mentioned those parts of the book because I want anyone listening to get a sense of what they'd be getting into, but I don't recommend the books because they're dense and nerdy. I recommend them for the video game level world building of a better future, which is something I have totally given up on. I started reading these books at the point in the pandemic where I couldn't leave the house for months because the sky was filled with ash. I wanted someone to tell me humans would start making better decisions before we ran out of time. But Stanley Robinson says we need not just time, but space. Space from bad ideas, time to try out the new ideas. Sir Thomas More invented the word utopia with a book of the same name in 1516. His original text set utopia on an imaginary island. 500 years later, Mars is the next best thing. For most of the trilogy, it takes about 10 months for ships to travel to Mars, which is great for the characters in terms of a defensive strategy against Earth's overlords, as well as emotional distance from Earth culture. More also created an alphabet for his utopia, which was by necessity symmetrical. His utopia's components were symmetry, cooperative structures, and impossibility. The word for utopia is a Greek pun on no place plus good place. So even in its initial stage, More's not writing because he thinks his utopia is a good roadmap for the future. That's not why someone writes a utopia and why I'm advocating that you write yours. According to a colleague of Stanley Robinson, acclaimed science fiction author Marge Piercy, this is why you write a utopia. At the time of this narration, the race to space is a defunded vestige of past ideals. At least in the public sector. When I ask my friends if they'd live on Mars, instead of dreaming, instead of scheming of silver spacesuits and otherworldly experiences, they say we shouldn't waste scarce resources on space. Resource scarcity is the second reason they say they don't want to go to Mars. The first reason may not even be a reason, but anyone I've talked to about this seems to just think the super rich will get there first and ruin it for the rest of us. And I agree. I find it hard to believe that the things that are wrong with our species could be avoided on Mars. But I've always been kind of glass is half empty. At times, it's given me a cynical outlook among my peers. But the weirdest part is that over the past decade, I've found more and more that outlook has turned mainstream. I recently watched this bad show about Generation Z. ostensibly co-written by an actual privileged youth. This is a character in that show. They're really, really popular, universally liked, so this isn't some fringe idea. Here's what they have to say about life in the future.
Also, why freak out when we're all going to be dead by 2050 anyway, right? What? Why does anyone care about joining a club to fix a world that's literally going to be uninhabitable?
Are you for real right now?
This is a big network show funded by HBO that is saying, at least in this funky California town, the idea that the world is ending in just 30 years has become normal. But even within that pessimistic outlook, which does seem to be growing, I've noticed parts of general society expressing interesting approaches to reclamation and empowerment through space by going teeny tiny. Somewhere in my 20s, manspreading became the ways our dads didn't understand their bodies. When I'm teaching at Cal State LA, I have to cultivate a safe space for my students because their safety is not guaranteed outside of the classroom. And that includes the virtual classroom as well. If someone's a lot to handle, I might say, she takes up a lot of space. Taking up too much space is bad because space is a fixed resource. Other people might need it too. If giving up space feels hard, meditation can help you to deal with rage, aggression, hopelessness. There are even apps to help you do it. Because our attention spans can be commodified, and therefore colonized. It's not just the algorithm affecting how humans think, it's affecting how humans act. In the 2018 Facebook Senate hearings, when asked what the company did to make money, Mark Zuckerberg replied, "We sell ads." Recently, Instagram got me with an ad, and I promise they're not paying me right now. I, for some reason, am this compelled to actually bring this up in this presentation. It's a pimple patch. I don't have a ton of acne, but I can't stop clawing at my face till it bleeds. So instead of seeing scratches, when I look in the mirror, I now just look like the night sky. It's an oceanic feeling, but just a cosmetic solution to the wound. But why was I looking in the mirror in the first place when I should just go outside? Social media is basically mind control, and that's exactly why anyone should keep focusing on what's going on in their psychological space. But when is all that hard work going to change the policy? What do we have if the policy doesn't change? And what resources do we have left to fight? To me, glass half full thinking, big, broad structural change, it's going to take something massive, something creative, something daring. So this guy, Stanley Robinson, has some big structural ideas. I've often joked that only a white man in the 1990s would author a book this long on how they'd build their utopia. Me? I'm a millennial. My existential consciousness was made here. I came of age in a housing crash that bailed out banks while my peers and I squatted in public parks. It didn't change anything. Last year, I watched my government squabble over petty political arguments while continuing to bail out corporations instead of people. More than 600,000 are dead in my country alone. Mostly due to negligence. When will this administration be punished for their crimes against humanity? More recently, the current administration in the US has made a few gestures towards combating climate change. That's really, really great, but it's hard to have faith when I know that this administration doesn't find urgent the same things I do. Half of millennials and Gen Z favor socialism, and that number is growing. But the boomers still take up a ton of space, particularly by hemming progressives into a two-party system. Is intergenerational obsession necessary? Yeah, maybe, which is why this millennial should probably stop talking about her parents' generation and get back to talking about the super rich. But boomers can be super rich too, and that affects scarcity. we, as in we the planet, are going to have to start organizing for the largest aging population yet. So tell me, what happens to a housing market that's flooded with need but clogged with Airbnbs? What happens if a vaccine can be owned? When a country can own access? I look to history for inspiration and find that even the victories feel so short-lived. What resources could possibly be more abundant in the future? Which brings me back to this book series. If sometimes you're feeling as hopeless as I do, I think it could be nice to just spend some time reading a book about things getting a little better. And I'm totally okay with anyone leeching white male boomer optimism, especially if it gives you space and time. For me, it took 8 months to read all 3. 8 months in precious positivity. 8 months in believing a better world was possible. You could read it with your friends and talk about what Kim Stanley Robinson got wrong, and most importantly, what you would do differently. You could write your own speculative utopia. Also, I know I get a bit dark. I hope I'm just paranoid about how bad things are and where they're headed. I certainly know past generations have feared some type of end. I don't know that I'm talking about the end of the world so much as the end of a world. And the feeling that I have to fight for resources to protect myself and my loved ones. As common as I feel like my feelings are at this point, it all still may just be some kind of fear of death. But I'm having trouble seeing what's going to change these awful trends in space and time. At the very least, you don't have to read 1,500 pages. Mars isn't fictitious, it's really there. The next time you can, go outside, find it in the night sky. It's the red one. I've found that just contemplating its sheer distance will grant you 2 certainties. We're teeny tiny, but we are seen.